Alright guys, hey, this is Dak. I posted the Ask Me Anything. Got a lot of good questions, so we're going to talk about them today. Keep in mind that I don't have the right answer all the time, so a lot of this stuff is just going to be from my point of view and interpretation. So we're going to just kind of go off a lot of these questions. There's links below. For the stuff that doesn't get answered today, we'll be doing a second one, okay? So let's just jump into it. We got a first question that says, improving on footwork, and the question would be that any kind of drills or drills to train not only footwork, but specifically footwork when you're tangled up or in like the bind. We get a lot of questions about footwork in general, and I'll cover that later on, but I want to cover the scope of the bind. So let's get like a sword and board out here. Grab my min. In a bind with reds, it's always gonna happen, and a lot of times I'm gonna be able to clearly say like it depends. So when you are in a bind, you know, it depends on if you're using a back shield and whatnot. So I'm not gonna get too much in detail with that. But footwork in a bind, if you're up close like this, you generally want to practice using footwork. Come on, closer. You generally want to practice moving away from their threat, their weapon. Okay, this is stuff. A lot of this is reiterated on the red training video that was done at RAG, but I'll say it again. You want to be able to move laterally. The lateral movement is what's going to protect you when you're up close and personal. Now, if you're in some kind of bind, if you're up inside real close within somebody, your footwork, you want to in general, you want to be lower than your opponent. What this will do is it'll prevent him from bowling me over. You know, if he runs into me and pushes into me, now if I'm up top, I can fall backwards and stumble, and I'm not going to be able to fight very well. Now if I'm like this and I'm low, heck, he can't do as much, okay? So your footwork is what we call kind of like a build state. You're building your footwork. You're becoming kind of like a brick shithouse at this point. You know, you might be up top like this fighting, but if he comes at me and you get in close, regardless of whether or not you live, your footwork at this point is going to strengthen you to be able to push, to be able to move, sidestep, or whatnot. So I would recommend when you're in a bind to strengthen and structure up. Because at that point, there's no getting away, like you're already in that point. But from here, you can allow to push yourself, you can allow to rely on your back shield if you have it, but it's better, all of that is better than falling back or getting just bowled over, you know. Okay, so that's the stuff you want to avoid, and that's what will happen if you have bad footwork in a bind. Also with this question, this follow-up is what sort of strike options may be available when tangled up. Now we talked about the footwork and whatnot, but you guys all know what I'm going to say. It depends with the red and all that, but you're going to have the Gravedigger. Now if we rotate 360, when you're in a bind like this, and I know we've talked about this a million times, in fact one of the questions is what's alternative to the Gravedigger, but just real quick, just showing you the Gravedigger, he can't strike high. I got my elbow up, and I'm able to strike, and my back shield covers the backside. If you don't keep your elbow up, he's able to pop this shoulder. Okay, so that's that Gravedigger when you're in a bind. Now, other things, like go ahead and grab the red real quick. Other things regarding about shot options when in a bind. Again, you weren't specific about what kind of binds, but I'm assuming you're talking about like a red versus red bind. So I'm going to go over a few options with that. So regardless of who has the longer weapon or shorter weapon, which does make a difference, we're in a bind, okay? At this point, what you can do, there's a few options, but these are all very complicated, and honestly, you wouldn't probably use a lot of them, because in my opinion, what I would recommend if you're in a bind is just simply grab their weapon. This is the go-to. If you are here, and you find yourself here, and you have the time, this is going to be the simplest thing to do. You have to remember, the more complicated you do a move, or the more complicated the move is, the lesser the chance you have of having a successful execution of it. Okay, so if you want to pull off some crazy ninja move, it's probably not going to go the way you want it to. But if you choose a very simple move like when the bind, because everything's going crazy at this point, and if you can just get this, or even get this, I'm not grabbing his weapon in this bind, okay? And at this point, you just take his butt, okay? You you take his butt, okay? There is another bind you can do. That's the easiest, and that's the most recommended in a bind. The next more complicated is to curl under. Now, this is basically you're bear hugging the weapon and you're pinning his against this. At this point, you can take your hand and push it like that, okay? But in the beginning, you're just coming in, you're binding, and at this point, you're pushing it in and you're just working that, okay? It's sloppy, you're coming in, but it's gonna work. And this weapon helps you until you get this hand here. Once you get this hand here, you can push, because he can still kind of strike me, but it's gonna happen so quick that he's dead, okay? And if he does hit me, it's gonna kind of be sloppy. Move back to the, it's gonna be sloppy and it's gonna be not sufficient. That's a little bit more complicated than just this, okay? The next most complicated is a handle pivot. I've taught this a lot. If you guys fight with heavier weapons and not carbons and fibers, you fight with heavier weapons, this may be a thing. Cross guards, this may be a thing. What you will do if you're in a bind, you'll catch in a bind, okay? This hand is gonna go over. All right? If you see that look all right? Okay, so in a fast motion, okay?
I'm going to zoom in if you want to do it slow again.
What?
I'm going to zoom in for you if you want to do it slow.
All right, I'm going to hit you. You're just taking this handle and you're lifting it over and throwing his weapon away. Now, even if he hits me, it's going to be leg or back shield. He's dead, okay? Again, this is probably the most complicated on the tier of like, why would you want to get any more complicated in a bind? Because your risk of achieving success is just going to drop exponentially. That's asking a lot. So you do that against guys that have big handles. If he's got a big cross guard like that, you can do a lot more with it. But if he's got, choke all the way down. If he's got a little handle, there's not a lot of room to, I can't do it, okay? So that's a move that you recommend against guys with bigger handles. And in general, moves that you would do in a bind are almost always going to be considered if they have a big handle. He's not going to want to bind up with something like this. But I have a lot of room to grab, tuck, and manipulate because he's got a bigger handle. Binds you might score a kill in a bind. In reality, maybe 1% of the time of your fights. Let's just be clear. You're asking a question that you should be getting a kill maybe 1 or 2% of the time from. Okay? Most of your kills are at a range or in control, not here. Okay? Other moves like grappling, you can go for a bear hug and stuff like that when you're in a bind. I recommend only doing that if you have, come on up here, Gumbjorn. The last thing, and this will be the last thing I'll talk about with binds. Let's just say this guy is a knight. Come on my side, you're on my team. He's amazing. This guy is God. And we suck. We're noobs, all right? The bind here is really good, or a grapple. I know he's going to kill us both. He knows he's going to kill us both. But what we can do is, I can close in knowing I'm not going to attack him and just block his shots and sacrifice myself to lock him down. He may kill me. Someone may kill me. But he's left open for a strike. That's a greater chance of winning than both of us trying to beat him without fighting him, right? So if you're ever going to try to bind somebody, use it when you have another teammate and you know that both of you are going to beat him or have a low chance of beating him. One of you go in, sacrifice yourself for a bear hug to lock him down while the other guy gets an easy kill. So binds, unfortunately, that's probably the limitations of it. Second question, any suggestions on how to train yourself away from relying too heavily on a watershed block? This is a good one. I hate watersheds. A lot of people out in the game, give me my 60. You can use it, man. A lot of people rely on watersheds, okay? Watersheds were great, and this is, again, my opinion. Watersheds were great when weapons were heavier, okay? When you could take the momentum and drive it. That game is gone, okay? If you are using heavier weapons and you are using watershed, in my opinion, you are toast, okay? And that's why the person has asked, can I get away from watershed, okay? And I agree with you. Now, you can do a handle block shot, okay? From here, that's just getting away. Now, how do you train, okay, Dak, I know how to handle block, but I'm still watershedding, right? We're all been there. Like, I still keep doing this, and I can't teach myself to not do it. I'm going to show you a drill you can do with your partner to reinforce handle blocking and reinforce keeping your tip up. All right? And that is just basically just practicing handle quadrant blocking. So you start out with your partner, and I go, Lazarus, I'm going to hit you. This is Lazarus, by the way. I'm going to hit you on this side, and you practice handle blocking, and then I'm going to do the other side. And you just do those 2 quadrants until you get a little bit faster, until he can't, okay, I can't hit him anymore. Now let's add 2 more quadrants. I'm going to add this shoulder and this shoulder, okay? And then so on and so forth. Now he's got 4 he's got to practice. You start out slow, and then you get a little bit faster, like Simon says, you know? And until he masters that, then you add 2 more, the legs. Okay? Okay, now you have 6. And if you can do all 6, bang, 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 really well, and when your partner starts going at max speed, you can almost guarantee you won't be watershed anymore. You've killed it. It's dead. You destroyed it, buried it in the ground, it's gone. All right? You may still do it on occasion, but that just means you need to go back to your drill. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? That teaches you some kind of construct. It gives you some kind of training to unlearn this old school style, all right? Now, if you have a heavy weapon, I mean, continue to watershed, you know? But now weapons are just getting lighter and lighter, so. All right. I'd like to see a video on intermediate advanced combos and responses to being charged by a fast opponent when not using a back shield. All right. So this is basically teaching you guys how to kill me. This is exactly how I... Go ahead and pick up a sword and board. Or actually, no, you're going to be the fast opponent, and I'm the opponent that doesn't have the back shield, right? Is that what they were asking?
Yeah.
So, give me a 60, and you have a min. So, in this case, you're typically going to understand that the opponent who chases you, comes at you, the fast opponent, is typically going to have a shorter red. They want to get in close. They want to get into this sweet meat area, right? I don't want him there, right? Lateral movement. Lateral movement is key, and we'll talk about footwork in a little bit, but push back. I'm going to go straight. He comes at me in slow-mo. If I move backwards, he can continue to hone in and lock on. He just continues to gain speed. If we were to go a mile this way, he can beat me at top speed going straight back. The only way I can cut down on that agility closure is if he comes in on me, you go an elliptical curve. You go an elliptical, and you go away from his weapon. Okay? So if you see where I moved, I actually moved in a curve, like a J-hook, okay? If you go straight back, you are just giving him more power, okay? Now, on top of that, when he closes in and you move like this, you have more shot options, okay? Making him have to rely on that, passively slowing him down a little bit even more. Whereas if you continue to go straight back, he's just going to continue to do what he wants to do to you, okay? A lot of red fighters, they will do the lateral movement, always lateral movement, and they will come across just like a windshield wiper chop. Because if he's coming in like that, you're going to take that arm, like if you actually swing, okay? Now, in a fast, high-speed motion, we'll do a few fast, high speeds, but like appendixes, but that is how you're going to slow him down, because he just wants to get in your shit, okay? So I'm going to do an engagement, and he's going to do a lateral movement. See how much range he was able to gain from me. We'll do it again. I had to follow him. Okay? Now we'll do one if he just goes straight back. I'm able to run him over. At the end of the fight, am I still in the shot? Mm-hmm. At the end of the fight, I was over here. Look where he died at. I was like almost past him. And into the line I go. But if you curve, you can deal with your opponent. Easier said than done. A lot of people forget. That comes back to footwork. You need to be defending and then looking for shots and moving simultaneously. It's like a pyramid. It's like a triangle. You need all three, okay? That's what will kill me if you J-hook and you go sideways. Again, he doesn't need, if he's doing that motion, he doesn't need a back shield, right? Because he's not even getting here. If he's right here, yeah, you need a back shield, but you're not letting him get to this point, okay? So that is plan A. That's the best way to do it. If you can do that every time, don't worry about back shields. You don't need to worry about grave diggers. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff. If he's getting to you, your footwork probably sucks. I mean, there's other things to consider like weapon size and stuff like that too, but I'm not going to get too much into that. Does that make sense? All right.
I think it's accurate.
All right, next one. How helpful would you say things like traditional sports like HEMA and whatnot, KDF, in general, are to enhancing red fighting? And what martial arts outside of DAG would you recommend picking up in the shield-breaking amazing world of red we live in? Dude, I respect whoever said this. Kudos. I love where your heart's at. Fortunately, not a lot, okay? Now, again, this is just my opinion, but I'm just going to go ahead and go on a limb and say maybe 2% of martial arts translates to DAG. Like, really, red fighting.
Maybe boxing. But
Maybe
just for the
boxing.
footwork.
I would say two things. Boxing and kendo. Okay, pick up a red. Boxing because of footwork and because of your aggression and range control, outside, inside defenses, but because of the high speed of things, but because typical martial arts are like, I have a 50-pound blade sword, or SCA where the rules are different, where you can just slam people in the head. Do not apply in DAG here. I joke a lot with a lot of people when I say, if you want good stuff, watch Star Wars. This is a 360-degree lightsaber. I can do a shot like this that can kill somebody. So kendo is good. Kendo, I would say, because kendo revolves a lot around slapping your weapon out of the way. You know, a quick control and strike. Kendo would work there. If you had kendo experience, I knew a lot of people, I've known a lot of people that have all sorts of martial arts skills, and they come up to fight, and they almost have to unlearn a lot of that stuff. I'm sorry, I really am. This is just my opinion, but a lot of it just doesn't. This is a sport in and of itself, and if anybody who's really fought for a while, they just know, like, a lot of it doesn't. I've done a few martial arts myself. I haven't done HEMA. I haven't done SCA, but I've watched a lot of videos, and I know that that stuff would just not translate to a greater degree. The pros and cons of the different lengths of reds. Specifically, I'm just going to break it down to a min, which is like 48, 50 inches, a 60, a 72 in that ballpark, and then you got your 80s, your big boys, the pluses, okay? The glaives, all right? There's a huge difference, all right? It's something that the top echelon red fighters, there's a lot of counters. It's kind of like Pokemon, fire counters, water counters, earth, blah, 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 right? I did bring all the different weapon types out here today. Just for the sake of scope of things, you really need to ask yourself what kind of weapon do you want to fight with, changes what kind of activities you want to do with it. We'll start with mins. If you have a min in line fighting, they're terrible, right? No duh. But if you have a min in the line fighting scenario, you're looking to skirmish, you're looking to get behind lines and backhack people, okay? You can strike quick with it, blah, blah, blah. Target that. Do not try to put yourself in a line fighting scenario with a min or anything around a min. Outside of a line, mins do great skirmishing. They specialize in gap closing. Okay, as a min, you have one dimension, and that is to get up close and get personal. Even though our weapons weigh the same, I have more maneuverability than he does, okay? I can move this faster than he does. So you just want to get closer. It's a gap closing tool. Obviously, I'm not going to go over mirror matches, but it's whatever. The min is generally, it shines in skirmishes where you can get behind enemies and flank. It does very well in duels against certain weapon types. It'll do good against 60s, and it will do a good against 80s. It sucks dick against 72s, all right? The reason because of it, give me that. I don't know why I kicked it. The 72, bring out 72. The 72 is like the min eater, okay? hate telling people this. It's like annoying. Because at this point, if I'm trying to gap close, he's going to get 3. I'm not going to try it, but like, he's going to get, I don't have gloves on, but he's going to get 3 shots on me. Well, we'll try it real quick. Okay, so he can get 3 shots with the 72 at that speed. It's kind of like this weird magic point where they can get that, okay? Where if he uses a 60, he's not going to get 3 shots. And I can close, because now, in fact, I can actually get a stab on him, okay? This is a 49. Big difference. I'd never be able to get that. Now, if you pick up an 80, the maneuverability becomes, at some point between that 12-inch, the maneuverability becomes so weird that if he gets 1 shot off, now it's just, he's not getting 3 like, or even 4 like he was going to get with the 72, all right? So mins, in general, are good against duels, against most types of reds, almost all of them. The sweet spot being the 72 is something that's going to give you the biggest trouble. It's a gap closing weapon. It's a skirmishing close range weapon. Recommended outfit you use with it is a back shield. All right, now let's talk about the 60. 60s is your hybrid. It's your best at everything, jack of all trades, master of none. 60s can do it all. You can line fight with it. It's not the best, but it does dang good. You can compete against the spears. If you choose to break between the lines and you have a back shield, you can still back hack with this because the pommel allows you to choke up. If you look at the Min real quick, the Min is designed to always be fought like this. You can do like this, but because of the top hand, the weights of carbons nowadays, you want to have your weapon where you fight like this, like a baseball bat with a Min. And because you can do that, it makes it a completely different animal than this guy. With this guy, sometimes you can fight like this, sometimes you can fight like this, and choke up and do some back hacking. So this can do what that can, but not quite as good, but it can do more. In duels, the 60 can fight against everything. It does tend to struggle slightly against its bigger natured brother, the 72. However, the 72, if you have gap closing experience, will suffer to this weapon. If I fight Lazarus with the 48 versus his 72, and I lose a lot, and I pick this up and do the same thing, I will win. This counters 72s in the world of gap closing. But 72s are 12 more inches. So they have, if you are that kind of fighter where you're good at stabs and good shot selection, you can find yourself winning against 60s quite often. It's more or less kind of a mirror match. It's not as big of a difference between the Min and the 60, but 72s kind of can give these guys trouble. But this is the jack of all trades. If you just want to jump into red fighting, I recommend this is the base new weapon. You don't have to know everything perfect. It makes up for it. You don't have to learn all the handle blocks well, but it can do it all. Hell, it can even do spins. Okay? Just not as good as the Min. You don't get all the premiums, but you get it all. All right, let's talk about the 72. 72 is, it's in a weird, funky place. This basically is what I say, this, and my peers, we say that this is the 60 for big and tall. If you're a big guy, here's the test. If you pick up a 60 and you go, this feels like a sword, this is what you want to use. If you pick up a 72 and you go, this feels like a glaive, then you need to use a 60. If you pick this up and you go, this feels like a sword, and you're a big guy and you're a tall guy, this is probably a sword for you. But for many littler people, shorter folks, like to me, this feels like a glaive. 72s come in all different sizes with half padding and not half padding. If you want to use it with half padding, remember that you could be grabbed in this point, or you could be locked up. But this kind of specific 72 has a lot more handle blocking room, and it has a lot of close range striking. It varies between 72s, but anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I would pick this up. Does all right in line fighting. Glaive does line fighting better than this. It has specific nature characteristics of beating 60s and destroying 48s in a duel scenario. But beyond that, it's kind of like you could be using, if you only want one red that does it all, and you want to win all the time, you got to pick your fights accordingly. I would rather get a 60, but if you're a big guy, get a 72. All right, 80s. The glaive. This is basically when it becomes no biffs, ands, or buts. I don't care how big of a guy you are. This is the damn glaive, all right? You would never want to put a full blade on these, okay? An 80 is typically best in the line fighting scenario. It's not good in duels. This is where you just completely switch over to a teamwork weapon at this point. Where the 72 might be kind of a solo weapon, this is a full-on team weapon. If you are alone, you can do a lot with it. You got this is where you also get into different hand styles. You got overhand and underhand. It takes a lot more energy than any other red fighter, any other red style. If you go overhand, you got a lot of redirection. You can keep the enemy at a range. You got good stab potential. And then if you do overhand, you have a lot of options as well. But remember, because it's so odd and wonky, you're not going to get heavy-duty 4 or 5 shots unless you machine gun someone's leg, okay? Beyond that, I'm not going to be able to strike here, here, and here. The handle is just too damn big. And if you try to hold it like this, 1, 2, 3, you're not going to get the feedback that a 72 or 60 will give you. This is where you say, this is my siege cannon, all right? Very clear cut. I think the difference usually, a lot of fighters ask, what about a 72 versus 60? And that's up to you, but if you're a smaller person, I recommend you go with the 60. If you like gap closing, go with them in. We'll do last 2 questions, this one and then footwork. Every red fighter needs to learn a good counter for the dreaded high cross. Lads, can you pick up a sword and board? High crosses, guys. Y'all getting high crossed out there, I feel bad for you. It's not, I mean, first off, you never want to get into a position with your high crossed. All the things we previously talked about, how to move linearly away from his weapon. But if you still find yourself in a high cross, let's just assume I don't have a back shield, so I can't grave dig. And this high cross guy is just smoking me every day with this dang high cross. I've tried grave digger, doesn't work. I've tried getting away from him. He just runs into me in high crosses. If you know it's coming at you at that point, you need a specific prescription for high crosses, strike down. You're not going to hit him in the head because his freaking arm's in the way. Done. The next question. Footwork and mechanics on how to get that shoulder on the sword and board. All right, we'll talk about the footwork last. The shoulder on the sword and board, there's a lot of, again, I'm not going to go too in detail on this one because this one is talked about in I'm going to reference our boys from the Ragnarok, the multiple red trainings. They do talk about the shoulder shot. There's lots of them. You can go for a stab. You can go for a stab on the shoulder. But if you're looking for this one, Exodus talked a lot about if you're in a line situation. It all depends. A lot of guys will drop their guard. They'll drop that shield, and a lot of times raise it right next to your shoulder. If I can, no, a little lower. If I can hit it, if you can see just that crest where it's like line, what that means is when you hit it, it's going to hit that shoulder as well. And if it doesn't, he still has a shield hit. I don't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hit him really hard, but I can get that shoulder when it's like that. If you can see, the general rule, I'm going to derive it for you. If you can see, you know how most seams have the cuff on that shoulder? They have that shoulder like, if you can see that, you can have it, okay? So put your shield right there. That hit?
Yeah, I think back here.
Yeah, I even hit him lower. I hit him down here, okay? So, golden rule to derive that question. If you can see that cup, you can take it. Now, if it's higher, if it's above it, you can't see it, okay? What that's going to do is, if it's higher, it's going to hit against his shoulder blade, and it's going to block it. But if it's lower, it's just going to want to go straight down.
This is also strap.
We're talking game of centimeters here. What?
This is also strap.
Strap shield versus shoulder. Yeah, I mean, I could go into all the varying details. Against a strap, you can do that. Punches, I wouldn't be trying to get the sweet shoulder shot against punches because they're baiting you. I mean, he doesn't have a punch, but if he did have one, they're baiting you because they're farther away. A punch isn't going to be typically holding his punch that close to the shoulder. You know, he's going to be, he can turn it sideways. So I wouldn't try to get that sweet shoulder shot. Even if he held it lower and was baiting it, he can push it. He can come out to me on the x-axis. No, just come straight out to me. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, God damn it, I'm sorry, buddy. Jesus. See, it's all bad, all right? So you can't get that. But the shoulder shot is good if if he's using a strap. Now that's just the straight bare bones to get to it. Now there are other ways to do it with a punch. You can throw energy this way and you can fake it that way. God damn it, you have a terrible look. You can fake it and you can get that shot, okay? You can't do that as well with the shoulder shield because it's kind of like built in. He's not gonna gravitate very far, but if you do like a, okay, you can get everything to shift to his left side or right, whatever. So the question was, what about high cross with a red? Needs to be omni. The high cross, if you think about a sword and board, it's just this. Let it move here. So I wouldn't be able to, you know, but this I'm not using it one-handed. With a high cross with a red is, okay, that's all it is. In slow-mo, are we in shot still?
Yep.
It is just that, okay? It's just a, all right? That's a high cross. You don't want to slam him in the face. You don't want to come over and just straight forward. You want to come around like you're gonna, but see your tendons aren't gonna cooperate with you, and you're gonna need to rotate your elbows. This is this kind of stuff that videos does help. So where if I try to do this, it's gonna come across and hit him. If I just tried to, right? But if I want that shoulder, I need to arc the elbows. I'm not hurting you too much, okay? So that's a high cross. No different if you were to use a high cross this way. See, I can't, I'm gonna wanna hit him in the face. With a high cross, you arc that elbow. Same thing, just a bitch. All right, so that's the high cross with the red. Needs to be an omni. With a blade, I guess you could do it. You gotta kinda like prime the bitch and be like, all right, we're coming in from the left. So I do it with the omni. All right, last question, footwork. Footwork. I saved this one for last because it's just something that got brought up a couple times. It gets brought up like once every month on the BOR. When we talk about footwork, footwork is something that's always there. You all walk every day, you all have footwork. There are a few tenets I will say and some drills I can help you with footwork. One is being on the balls of your toes. Balls of your feet, try being up a lot, okay? This does take more energy, but it keeps you more balanced. A lot of times people, they think, I have good footwork. They really don't because their balance is crummy. You can test your balance by marking a spot on the ground and trying to jump on it and landing on the balls of your feet. And if you can stick it and you can hold it for a little while, maybe you do got good balance. But if you find that you wobble and take those few steps, you might not be very good, and that might tell you that you're not good on the balls of your feet. If you're good on the balls of your feet, and now you know that I can jump and I can stick and I can bend my knees and transfer my energy, now you stay on the balls of your feet, and what that allows you to do, all sorts of things. It can allow you to move your feet. It allows you to pivot, okay? You can take steps and you can drag your foot because you're not flat-footed. It's very hard to do, flat-footed. Balls of your feet is a very subtle thing that you need to be good at. Let's start with your balance. See that you even meet the base requirements of balls of your feet movement. Once you do, try to stay up as much as you can, but it's difficult to always be on the balls of your feet. Anytime you do, you will have enhanced footwork, you'll have enhanced balance, you'll perform better, all right? There's disadvantages of that. I'm not gonna go into, like if he checks me, if you're on the balls of your feet, you're more apt, back to the first question, if you're in a bind, you don't wanna be on the balls of your feet. You wanna be built, okay? But in general, you're not in a bind. So being on the balls of your feet is like a very easy one. The second thing is your lateral movement. Now a lot of people go, well, I know how to move laterally, and this is what they do. They don't swing, they just move laterally all day. This doesn't do anything. This is preheating the oven without putting in the meal, all right? You need to, if he strikes over here, you need a lateral and strike simultaneously. If you just go like this all day long, what's he gonna do? He's gonna reposition, okay? During the block, okay? Right? As I'm blocking, I'm moving to just open up even more, all right? And there's the strike on the other side. All right? Simultaneously, very easier said than done. If you look at videos of yourself or other fighters, they'll be dancing, and then once he closes on me, they'll just get linear. Or they'll strike back and they'll block, but they're not even moving. And they may even move backwards. And just, that's not footwork. That's not J-hooking. And that lack of footwork is going to let faster, more agile fighters and fighters that have the tempo and the initiative to take control of you. If you have good footwork and you're on the balls of your feet, you can regain that initiative and you can perform other things like moving to the side, lateral movement, and opening up shot selections while keeping him at a distance if you want to do that, okay? So I recommend some workouts. Practice your balance, practice lunges, because a lot of footwork, you're bending your knees, okay? Dozer submitted a nice thing on the BOR, thank you Dozer, about never crossing your feet. 99.9% of the time that's right. I don't teach it, but I'm crazy, I cross my feet from time to time. If you have good enough footwork, you can do weird things and throw your opponent off. I'm a strong supporter that there's no wrong move in Dagger here, but I'm not going to go off on that tangent. So, to build off what Exo said, walking the diamond, you can move your legs in a diagonal motion, okay? These are good practices to build your footwork, okay? A lot of times that's all you need to do. Back to what I said, if you make it more complicated, your execution chance is going to be lower. Keep it simple, stupid. You're in combat. You got other things to deal with. You're worrying about his weapon. You're worrying about defending against his weapon. You're worried about killing him. You may be worried about your teammates, but you still got to worry about your footwork. You need to make sure you're doing something with it. Sometimes a little is all you need. Walk diamond. It's just a diagonal movement, okay? Don't crush your feet. Stay on your toes. Check your balance. Lateral movement. And those will greatly enhance your footwork. The last thing, shoes. This guy right here had balded shoes forever, and he was falling down just because he had no treading. And now he just got regular tennis shoes, and his footwork has gone through the roof. So check your shoes. If you don't got at least some kind of treading, that's probably something that's holding you back. But it's also not going to be the thing that's going to make you a god either. Just make sure you have good shoes as well. If you fight barefoot, understand your limitations with barefoot. All right. That's all we have today. I got a lot more questions. We're going to cover it later, but the sun's kind of getting dark. And I don't want to sit here and rant all day, so we're going to do some live fire exercises, all right?
Just leave me the shield and the extra weapon.